Hi, this is Sarah Yates, and I just wanted to give a quick overview of my final project for the Art and Science of Teaching and Mentoring. I have quite a few documents, and I thought it would really be confusing to have to download all those to view my project, and so I thought a little screencast might be helpful. And so my workshop is about social studies. I'm actually teaching a social studies class this fall, and so I'll be able to use some of my information from Methods of Teaching Adults in my social studies class this fall. My unit has a dual purpose. We want to be sure that our students are ready to pass the subject area exam, so I will be covering some historical content. And also it is a methods class, so we want to be sure that I've incorporated plenty of excellent methods of teaching. So my first workshop is called History Instruction for All, and if you open my unit you can see that I did it like a lesson plan setup where I listed my materials and then I listed my faith integration. And one thing as you peruse through the unit, you'll see these colored boxes that I just inserted in Word and put kind of a tint to them to signify that this is where I'm implementing something that I learned maybe from one of our texts or an article or from my notes from our class this summer. And here I've given my citation for this faith integration that I took from our Cultivate text. And then I have the objectives for the first day. And the first thing that I'm going to do in the workshop is have a mock interview. And I think that that will really serve as a great activating strategy for our students at Southeastern. They are very interested in the whole interviewing process and how do I get a job. And in my mock interview, I'm going to ask a question about social studies. And I will let the interviewee know that our school's very proud of our scores. Let's say we're an elementary school and we're doing well in reading and math, but our history curriculum has been neglected. And then I will lead into a question about history. And I think that that will motivate the adult learners in my class to really pay attention during the content portion and realize that this could very well be something that a future principal might ask them. And then we're going to have lots of collaborative discussion throughout the workshop. Again, here you can see where I've incorporated or kind of explained why I included a certain event or task in my unit. This one is about making our students comfortable because we learned in our text that how well we are going to remember something and be able to process information really does depend on how we're feeling at the time, and that we need to make sure that all of the participants in our class are comfortable and ready to learn. I've incorporated Think, Pair, Share for the students to, kind of put their heads together and generate some ideas for how they would involve all learners in their social studies lessons. I also incorporated Dr. Harris's PMI activity plus, minus, and interesting, and I explained how we would do that. And here are some of the historical lessons that the students will be exposed to in history, such as number one, many groups come to the United States, and talking about immigration. Well, a possible current event that we could discuss that's related to that would be, should immigration be restricted? So just some more involvement there. Discussing how a current issue is maybe a plus, a minus, how something about that issue is interesting. And again, I ended with a quote from our Cultivate text about building bridges of understanding and passing the baton of godly faithfulness to the next generation as we discuss issues in society. And then we're going to have an activity time where we're actually taking what we've learned and putting it to use. And I planned this as a workshop with lots of activities, and it might, actually be longer than an hour. This could probably be broken down into 2 workshops, but I wanted to be sure that I had plenty of content here. And so here, our putting our learning to use is going to be planning a market day to help history come alive in a history classroom. And I have a PowerPoint that I have prepared to share with the class to let them know what I mean by a marketplace day. Just for a little peek at this PowerPoint for unit or actually day one. I wanted to talk about a French marketplace, and I included a video clip from the Ever After movie where the wicked stepmother and the stepsister are going to market, and we're going to actually talk a little bit about the culture of step families in historical times. And of course, because social studies includes geography, I have the map included, and we're going to talk a little bit about education for girls during that time period. And then I show the video clip of where they're buying a brooch for the mean stepsister at the marketplace. And then just continue the discussion of the different attire that was worn during that time period. And then I have one more market clip where the prince is coming and there's a chicken involved. So lots of fun things that I think will interest them and that will motivate them and help us in planning our own market day experience. And then I've prepared a ticket out the door for the end of that particular workshop where participants will write about methods that they could use to make history come alive for their social studies students. So just giving them a time of reflection. My day two workshop is historical thinking, and I'm going to begin as an activating strategy by giving all of the participants 4 events, and of course they will not have the dates out beside their events, and they're supposed to put those events in the order in which they should be listed on a timeline. And then I'm going to discuss with them that only 19% of fourth graders were able to get all 4 events in the correct order. And it's not like students were trying to recall the dates. They were just supposed to put them in the order that they happened. And so obviously our students need some more teaching in the area of American history, and we're going to talk a little bit about timelines. And you can see here in my unit I've inserted that I'm going to show some example timelines. Just for a little sneak peek at my timeline, I'm going to talk about how things have changed over time. This one's with the Coca-Cola Bottling Company. Here's one with Legos. I'm going to talk about students in the Montessori school taking the timeline and really working on things in their community and in modern history, and talk about how in the Montessori schools a lot of times the teachers will start a timeline and just leave lots of blanks for the students to fill in, talking about connecting it to a larger part of history and showing how the students really show pride in their work, and that they can use their imaginations, and really we just need to provide lots of supplies. I do have a timeline rubric in my unit that they'll be using, and students can work and create their own timelines. There are timeline programs online. Of course, some of you might have been in Dr. Miller's class where we use Time Glider, which is not a perfect program, but it was interesting. This one's Teachnology to set up a timeline. There's a little glimpse of Time Glider. One of the quotes that I included in my unit from our textbook on adult learning is here, that learning is best when it is technology assisted, not technology based. And I included that in the unit where we're talking about using some technology to create our timelines, and talking about different things that the teachers might want to consider putting on a rubric for their students when making a timeline. And here I'm encouraging the workshop participants to talk and dialogue about their timelines. I'm modeling that. I'm reminding them to balance their own interest with the interest of other learners in their group. So then they're going to put their learning to use in groups, and we're going to have some fun working on timelines. Workshop 3 is really a lot of fun, or at least I had a lot of fun designing it. And I made this workshop on primary sources. The students are going to be asked questions about using primary sources on their subject area exam. It's also covered in the textbook for this particular college course. So I start with faith integration and an activating strategy of an artifact that I've brought in. I found a website where you can actually download videos. For example, I have a video of JFK talking to former President Dwight Eisenhower about the Cuban Missile Crisis. I found the canceled check for the purchase of Alaska. So just a lot of fun things to capture their attention with in the area of bringing in artifacts. Let me give you a little sneak peek of some of my primary sources that I found. This PowerPoint for primary sources, I thought it was appropriate to talk about Google, because we use Google to research and to find all kinds of interesting artifacts. So there's the canceled check for the purchase of Alaska, and I have some details down in the notes. I also talked about the Klondike Gold Rush, and I included a video clip from the Library of Congress, and it's showing them loading wagons. And then I talk about how the students and the participants will be able to go to the Library of Congress and download things, and including maps, of course, bringing that lesson back around to geography. Including some pictures. Those can be primary sources because they were taken at the actual time of the event. And after Alaska, I got into the Cuban Missile Crisis and showed some actual pictures and videos of things that were transpiring at that time. Here's President John F. Kennedy's radio address. I thought it was remarkable to have the tape showing here where they've taped, I guess, like a black cover sheet there over the desk. I thought that was interesting. But just going through and clicking, this was actually in Florida during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and showing some pictures of submarines, and here one of our planes flying over a Russian sub. And then I have a phone conversation that's recorded. As I play the phone conversation, I will show the picture of President John F. Kennedy and Dwight Eisenhower. So I had a lot of fun with the primary sources workshop, and then I included a book share with group discussion, and I suggested the book The Story of My Life and Work by Booker T. Washington. So the whole unit is there if you're interested. Workshop 4 was on people and places and changes that they go through. And there's just a lot of literature that can be included, where there's maybe a picture of a town and how it's changed. I created a PowerPoint of Lakeland, and I was able to pull up some pictures from the historical files at the Lakeland Library and show how Lakeland has changed over time. There's a lot of books that talk about how families change over time. There's another little PowerPoint that I inserted there. And Workshop 4 has that discussion section, but then the main bulk of Workshop 4 is going to be an active learning workshop, and there are 5 centers that I'm going to set up, and participants can go around and visit the different centers. And so if you're interested in seeing those, they're labeled Idea 1, where they're writing about what's in a name. Creating a memory quilt is idea number 2. Talking about how places change using books such as Home or The Little House by Virginia Lee Burton, and some crafts that they can do about how things have changed. Beatrice's Goat, talking about how a young lady in Uganda's life was changed by the gift of a goat, and then how people and places change. So just wanted to give you a little preview so that if you were trying to see everything in the unit, you didn't have to download every PowerPoint to get the gist of the unit. I hope you enjoy.